The hidden psychology behind having few friends. Have you ever looked around and realized your social circle is smaller than most people's, maybe even non-existent, and wondered what that says about you? Society romanticizes being popular, but psychology paints a different picture. Having few friends often says less about your social skills and more about how your brain and emotions are uniquely wired. Let's unpack what's really going on beneath the surface. Number 1. Zero tolerance for fake people. You know that moment when someone's being overly nice, but it feels just a little too rehearsed? Your radar picks it up instantly. That's not you being cynical. That's your brain identifying inconsistency. Psychology calls this high social discernment, the ability to detect hidden motives and emotional mismatches in others. For people with this trait, authenticity is non-negotiable. The problem? Most everyday social spaces thrive on a certain level of performance. Small talk, polite flattery, subtle power plays, all these layers are exhausting if you crave genuine human expression. You may find yourself shutting down when someone's energy doesn't match their words, or when you sense an agenda hiding underneath the conversation. This sensitivity often grows with emotional maturity and self-awareness. Research shows that as self-awareness develops, tolerance for fake behavior drops dramatically. You start valuing sincerity more than popularity. You'd rather spend a quiet evening alone than pretend to laugh through shallow gossip. That decision often confuses others. They might think you're cold or standoffish, but what's really happening is boundary keeping. You protect your mental and emotional peace by choosing truth over pretense. Ironically, your low tolerance for fakeness makes you more emotionally intelligent, not less social. It might limit the number of friends you keep, but those you do connect with often experience you as deeply real. You don't just listen, you see people, and that's a rare skill, even if it sometimes comes with the price of solitude. Number 2, you prefer depth over quantity. You don't chase crowds, you crave connection, real connection. Psychologically speaking, this is tied to what's called preference for intimacy depth, the desire for few high-quality relationships rather than many superficial ones. It's not avoidance or social anxiety, it's selectivity. You care less about filling silence and more about whether a conversation's worth having. When small talk starts, how's the weather, how's work, your mind quickly drifts elsewhere. You want to explore why people think the way they do, not just what they did last weekend. Your social energy is precious, and you invest it in people who can meet you on that deeper wavelength. Science supports this instinct. Research from the University of Arizona found that people who prioritize depth over frequency in communication report higher levels of life satisfaction. It's not about how often you talk, it's about what's shared. For you, that might mean discussing human behavior, philosophy, art, or even those unspoken emotional experiences most avoid. But here's the catch. Deep connections take time to form, and modern life doesn't always reward patience. So, instead of chasing fleeting comfort, you choose honesty, even if that honesty looks like solitude. The world interprets your quietness as loneliness, but you experience it as clarity, because when you do find someone who gets you, it feels less like making a friend and more like coming home. Number 3, your brain needs longer recovery after socializing. After spending time with people, even close ones, you might feel mentally tired, physically heavy, and in need of silence. That's not introversion alone. Neuroscience points to a phenomenon called high social sensitivity. Your brain's limbic system processes emotional and social information more intensely, which burns more energy than it does for most people. During conversations, you're not just hearing words. You're decoding tone, micro-expressions, context, and emotional undertones, sometimes all at once. That's high-level cognitive processing. The more data your brain absorbs, the faster your mental battery drains. Where an extrovert might leave a party feeling charged, you leave needing solitude. It doesn't mean you dislike people. It means your nervous system has a tighter energy budget when it comes to social interaction. Alone time isn't isolation, it's neural recovery. You're replenishing dopamine, lowering cortisol, and reorganizing emotional information, essentially giving your brain space to process everything it just absorbed. Understanding this changes the narrative. You're not rejecting others. You're respecting your biology. You've simply learned that peace often feels louder in quiet rooms. Number 4, you're extremely independent and don't crave external validation. You don't need a crowd to confirm your worth, and that alone sets you apart. Psychologists call this low social dependency, meaning your sense of confidence and identity come from within, not from approval or attention. You entertain yourself, motivate yourself, and think deeply on your own terms. But in a culture fueled by likes, followers, and constant social proof, that independence can be misinterpreted. People might see you as aloof or distant simply because you're not constantly seeking interaction. What they miss is that your inner world is vibrant, full of ideas, curiosity, and self-reflection. You're comfortable in silence because it's not empty to you, it's meaningful. There's also a practical side to this. The fewer people you depend on emotionally, the harder it is for others to manipulate or disappoint you. Your strength lies in emotional self-sufficiency. You can find calm without reassurance, joy without validation, and drive without external praise. That doesn't mean you avoid connection, it means you don't need it to survive. Relationships become a choice, not a necessity. This independence often develops from a history of resilience, times when you had to figure things out alone, or when you realized few could truly understand your mind. Over time, solitude became empowerment. When you no longer search for validation in others, you gain an unshakable kind of freedom. Your worth stops fluctuating with the opinions around you. So when people ask why you're so comfortable alone, what they're really noticing is that you've built a stable inner foundation. You don't isolate, you self-anchor, and that's a rare strength in a world addicted to applause. Number 5, past experiences taught you to be cautious. Every cautious person has a story. Sometimes, having few friends doesn't come from preference alone, it's protection. Psychology calls this the trust threshold, a subconscious mechanism that raises your standards for who you allow in after being hurt, betrayed, or disappointed before. When trust breaks, the brain learns. Your amygdala, the emotional alarm center, becomes hypersensitive to potential social threats. You start reading between the lines, scanning for red flags, testing consistency before attachment. It's not paranoia, it's pattern recognition. The mind that's been burned learns to observe before it opens. That kind of caution often gets mislabeled as guarded or cold, but in truth, it's emotional intelligence refined by experience. You've seen what happens when you trust too easily, so now your instinct demands proof. Over time, this can make your social circle smaller, but stronger. People who make it past your trust threshold usually stay, because you've built connection on something real, not convenience. There's also self-respect in that hesitation. Being selective is a form of wisdom. You learned that proximity doesn't equal loyalty, and words don't always match actions. By filtering who enters your orbit, you preserve your peace and protect your energy. That doesn't mean you're closed off, you're simply patient. You wait for congruence before connection, alignment before attachment. And when the right person or group finally meets those standards, you show up with more loyalty, depth, and authenticity than most people ever experience. Because once you trust, you fully trust. It just takes more than charm, it takes integrity. Number 6, what it really means to walk alone. So, what does all this mean? If you've spent long stretches without friends, if you've found comfort in solitude despite how society judges it, it's not a flaw. It's often the signature of a rarer psychology, more self-aware, more discerning, and more resilient than average. Having few friends doesn't mean you're broken. It means your mind demands substance. Your emotional radar is sharper, your standards higher, your inner world richer. While others may scatter their energy across dozens of shallow ties, you save yours for what actually feeds your spirit. You might feel misunderstood sometimes, and that's okay. The truth is, the most self-aware people often walk alone for a season, not because they can't find friends, but because they refuse to settle for empty imitation. And when you finally meet someone who resonates with the authenticity you value, that bond will feel effortless, because your solitude prepared you for it. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.